Welcome to today's episode of Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities, the very first for 2023. And today we're exploring what would be possible if we relaxed into the new year. And what is relaxation, really? And what has it to do with receiving? And why would any of that matter for creating your life and living? As my guide, I have invited Simone Milasas, the founder of Joy Business and an avid explorer of what is truly possible to create in this world when you use the tools of consciousness.
What would change in the world if you, me, and everyone choose to feed the wolf of possibilities instead of the one of doubt, distrust, and despair? The way I see it, our point of view creates reality, not the other way around. Somewhere deep within, I think we know that. In this podcast, I am daring you to claim this remarkable superpower. Join us and be inspired by trackers, explorers, and finders of possibilities from the multiverse of hope. Welcome to the podcast, Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities, with your host, Katarina, Wallentin.
So welcome, Simone.
Thank you, Katarina. Thank you for having me on here. I'm excited.
Yay, this very first day of the year. Amazing. I literally
had a phenomenal day.
So tell us about your day, your first day of the year.
Yeah, my first day of the year. And I woke up, quite often one of the tools I use, which is so much about relaxation and being present is, I'll wake up in the morning and I put my hands on my body somewhere and I ask a question, any question. And this morning I was just literally Happy New Year, body. And I was like, okay, what can we create, today? What can we choose today? And just looking at the future. And there's, to me, I don't know, this year seems like it has such a space of possibility to it. And that's truly, I get what I stepped into today. And I started off, I've done lots of things throughout the day. It's my, 5:00 now. But my favorite thing that I did today, or two of my favorite things, was I did this call with a facilitator in Canada, Linda, and it was about the spirits of the land and listening to the earth and listening to the spirits of the land, right? And I was talking about Indigenous people in Australia and how we can listen to those whispers and choose and create from that. So then it's very hot here today, Katarina. And it's 11:30 a.m. and I've got these new hiking shoes. And I thought, I'll go test my new hiking shoes. And I literally walked out of my house and I went, okay, body, where do you want to go? And it went this way. And it's not a way that I usually go. And I went, okay. And I started walking and then it was like this way. And I came across, now coming from Australia, when you have long, tall grass, it's not something that you usually, especially in summer, I'm going to walk through the long, tall grass because the chances of snakes in there are quite high, So, but I saw this long, tall grass and then this gate at the end. And I was like, what's that? I've never seen that before. And I walked over there and it was an entrance to a national park, which I had never walked into. It's literally 15 minutes walk from my house. And I went, oh, should we discover this? And I, was in question because a lot of the times, because it is really hot, it's like with the snakes, with everything. And I went, no, this feels beautiful. So I walked in and I spent an hour and a half. My neck is a little sunburnt because I was out in the middle of the day, like I said, with no water and getting slightly lost in this bush. It was so stunning and just kept walking. And there's all these different pathways. I didn't see anybody else, but walking on this earth and with my new hiking shoes, like with the rocks and the slip and the bush and everything was just so magical. And I could hear the ocean in the distance and it was me and the earth. And I've got to say, this level of possibility that I know is there and we have to be willing to choose it and be so present. And there was this one moment where the pathway got a little narrow. And to me, the narrow is just, you get a little bit, for me personally, I get a little bit like, okay, I can't see if there's snakes. And I went, is there going to be snakes here? And I got no. And I just kept walking. And it was just this trust and this presence of myself and my body and the whole entire bush and land was incredible. I was so grateful.
And that is so much of that relaxation. And you said in the very beginning, you said, for me, like briefly, you just mentioned it, for me, relaxation a lot is presence. So could you talk a little bit more of that? I get a lot of question on what relaxation really is in my classes, but also just in conversations, because we've started to talk about it, but nobody really gets it. What is it?
I know. I said to Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, this morning, I said, perhaps, just perhaps, people are actually starting to get what you were talking about with the relaxation, because I do notice that a lot of people are choosing that relaxation. And so part of that for me is, for example, Christmas Day, I chose to spend it totally on my own. Now, I could have gone and done something, but I just went, no, I wanted to actually spend it on my own. I literally chose in 10-second increments. I was like, okay, what next? What next? To the food I ate, to did I want to have a glass of champagne? I had one glass of wine at like 8 o'clock at night, and that's it. And I went to the beach and I listened to Gary's class that he had called Creating Your Life throughout the day, and just was with me. By the end of the day and the next morning when I woke up, I was like, wow, what awareness showed up for me. And it was such a sense of space, because I was so present with every single thing I was choosing. And there wasn't that clatter and clutter that seems to show up a lot when people are like pinging you on threads and everything like that, because people had their Christmas Day, so they don't really, quote unquote, disturb you. But nobody should be, nothing that anyone does or says should be a disturbance anyway. But I got that this sense of peace was amazing, and this sense of space of me. And so after that, I started asking myself questions. What would I like my future to be like, including with work, schedule, everything? And I went, oh, I need to make sure that I include space for me. And I'm looking at the exploration of that, Katarina, because to me, you would go, oh, that means having a day off, or that means this, or that means that. And it's like, I don't get that it does. I think it means something entirely different, but there's an energy of it. And the same as relaxation to me is that presence that expands your awareness with every moment. So like today in the bush, being totally present with where I was, but not actually really knowing where I was, because each little corner I turned, I went, all right, worst case scenario, I go back the way I came, because I could see where the ocean was. I know where my house is roughly, but then it was like, okay, how do I, I don't really know where I'm going. So it was that being so present and relaxed and listening, like just listening to, I want to say like the spirits of the land and the earth, and go, let's go here, let's go there. And my body, where do you want to go? And the smells, that's the other thing. I could smell the trees. It was just so beautiful.
We talk sometimes about following the energy, and that is like in that relaxation, you're actually able to follow the energy wherever that takes you. It reminds me of this. There's a quote in one of my favorite movies, Out of Africa, and I think Robert Redford plays Dennis, which is the guy in that movie, and he sits on a beach with Karen Blixen, which is Meryl Streep, and she wants him to get married to him. And he says, I found this before, I'm with you because I choose to be with you. I don't want to live someone else's idea of how to live. Don't ask me to do that. I don't want to find out one day that I am at the end of someone else's life. And it really like goes into this, if you don't relax into, like you're describing it, where you literally choose from every moment, you will be living someone else's life.
And I was talking to a friend the other day about, I guess different relationships, like from friendships to business, relationships to lovers, etc. And I was talking the other day about, what if we could truly choose them based on, it works now, it works at this moment. And when it doesn't work, acknowledge it and let it go. Like, why do we try and hang on to all this stuff and all these people, rather than going, this is great. In this 10 seconds, this is perfect. It's awesome. And then what else is possible? It might last, 1 week, 1 year, 10 years, anything. And that's all the relationships that you have.
And it also, I just realized when you said that, it also allows you to receive in a completely different ways. Like you're describing the smells and like the little how you communicate with everything, because you're not going to hold on to them. It works for you now. It doesn't mean that you're going to go to the nature reserve every morning from now on and do the same. It just means that's what worked for you right then, right there in that moment. And that for me is actually relaxation, relaxing into receiving that. So,
yeah. Well, look, one of the parts that I really found out about relaxation is a while ago, I realized I had no idea what relaxation was. So I started running some, access processes and walking on the beach and asking myself, like, what would it be like if I was totally relaxed and choosing from relaxation? And one of the things that showed up for me, Katarina, was time like ceased to exist. And there was no time in the equation, because so often we go, I don't have time, or this is the time, or da-da-da. And it's like that puts a focus and a conclusion and this compression of energy on something, rather than, because you have a point of view. If you have no point of view, then there's this expansion of possibilities. And when time ceases to exist, I noticed that judgment ceased to exist. I was like, oh, relaxation, not functioning from time. Like, what are you trying to rush everything for? What if 2023 was not about trying to fit everything in? What if it was about giving you more space?
I love that. I also, from that space of time ceases to exist and judgment ceases to exist, one of the things that I learned so much from was the session you had. We were recently at a class in Rome, and you had a session with Dane here, one of our friends and colleagues. And in that session, you said something like, I'm usually happy when I got everything right and when all my ducks in a row. And I looked at that for myself, and I know that up till very recently, I really was only happy when I felt like I had everything, all my ducks in a row. Everybody was happy with me. I had got everything done on my list, like my to-do list. That's when I got to be happy. And that's really become a question for me. What actually makes me happy? If rightness isn't the way there, what is happiness?
And the no conclusion. Like, I was hanging out with a friend the other night, and I really went, okay, if I didn't conclude anything, nothing, what would we choose? And there's this great, if you haven't seen it, you probably have. It's one of my favorite books ever, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And it's now a 34-minute animated movie on Apple TV. It's brilliant. It's so good. And there's so many moments in this that I can so relate to. But the part about, like, if you had no conclusion and you were just functioning from, okay, what next? And he says in this movie, when friends do nothing together, it's not really nothing, is it? Basically, because you're being. And it was so cool. And that's like, what if we actually lived our lives like that? What can we be together? With no conclusion, not looking for a result. It's just like, what is the happiness beyond the rightness of happiness, Kat? And I know you're discovering that, and I'm discovering that too. And I say, let's go.
And that question, what can we be together, also has that sense of relaxation in it. Because you can't be if you don't relax, because then you're actually continuously looking at what to do or even what to create, which sounds like it would be about being. But so often for me, I will start creation from a sense of relaxation and joy, and then it will like sneakily fall into the doing part. And that's also something that I'm like, when exactly does that occur? What am I doing at that point when I turn the creation from joy into, I have to get this done now?
I can have a guess when other people's points of view come in.
Yeah, that is so correct.
When other people's points of view come in, do we then go, oh, it has to look like something, you have to prove something or need or whatever? It's like all of that insanity starts to come in, rather than if you were still creating and there was no one else around, what would you choose? And would time be relevant or not relevant? You'd never judge it. You'd let it go. You'd hold on to it. You'd play with it. You would everything.
Yeah, and then you would go to it when it actually called you. Like it would call you
Exactly.
in the moment
Yeah.
when it's exactly the moment to move that or change that or add that. Mm.
So the way you invited me to this podcast, Kat, was beautiful because you said, "Hey, would you be willing to do this?" And it was so funny because I said, "I am really trying not to put anything in between my Christmas and New Year, just to give myself literally some space to work, like some space to create, you know." And you went, you said, "Hey, if we find a time that works for both of us, let's do it. And if we don't, then we won't." And that
Mm.
was such an invitation. And then when you said you wanted to talk about relaxation, I was like, oh yeah, that's appealing. And we found a space. But it
Yeah.
wasn't this, I wasn't going to let you down if it wasn't available. It wasn't this necessity. It was a choice.
Mm.
Not
It,
dissimilar to that quote you said from Out of Africa. You know,
yeah.
he wants to choose something, not be, the basis of somebody else's reality.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that also brings it back to this. It's a needlessness. I didn't have a need to do this podcast with you. I had a
No.
desire that could either be received, fulfilled, or not. Like with no. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering also that again is an example of relaxation. It's a relaxation in an idea, a question, and a possibility, literally. And then just going with, does that actually work out or not? Mm,
Yeah, in
mm,
relaxation, you are needless.
yes. Oh, that's wonderful. So we're coming towards the end of the podcast, and I was wondering if somebody's listening to this and they would like to start exploring relaxation, where would you suggest they start? Like, what could be a good way to explore this?
I would start with just even in the morning when you wake up. Like I know I spoke about that right at the beginning of the podcast, but that energy of just being relaxed with you. Because how much do you judge like what you've done, what you haven't done, judge your body, judge your money, judge your business, judge all of this. And even if it's, a smaller amount than other people, if you're still in judgment, you're not functioning from the relaxation. So I say, wake up in the morning, touch your body. And it's like, however you want to touch your body, that's up to you. And it's like, but be really present with your body. And it's like, hey, body, like I will do anything from like, I might even talk to my toes first thing in the morning, or my organs, or my skin, or just be like, oh, can you hear the birds? And it's like, and I have this moment, and it could be like 10 seconds, or maybe it's a minute or 2 minutes or 30 seconds of just being really present with me and my body as I wake up. And that's how I start every morning. And it's different every morning. I don't have a routine. It's just whatever shows up.
It reminds me of how a child, like a happy child, wakes up, oh my God, I have toes. Look, there they are again. But that,
But I am like that. I wake up like that. Actually, sorry. You know what Gary said to me a while ago? Because I asked him because I wake up and I'm like, I'm on fire. Like that's generally how I wake up. And I was talking to him, funnily enough, about relaxation. And I was like, is that a form of relaxation or what is this? And he said, you are more open to receiving first thing in the morning, Simone. And I said, what do you mean? He said, when you go to bed at night, that's when you start to receive. And he was like, you do it. Some others do it. Not everybody does it, but you start to receive, and you start to receive from the earth and from nature and everything. So by the time you wake up, I'm in this like full throttle of receiving. I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. You're like, yeah, because you know what I'm like. By the end of the day, people are like, can you meet up at 7 p.m.? And I'm like, 7 p.m. I know it's not late, but God, I don't have a brain. Or what do you want me to do? It's like, but 5 a.m. Okay, if you want, I can. It's like, so that's my like waking up from receiving all night and the relaxation of it. Now what else is possible?
And that's such the joy of being alive, like the joy of coming alive and the joy of receiving without having to do anything. You're just receiving from the earth overnight. And there is this, we talk about coming alive or being alive, and there's such a big difference of being alive, basically not dead, having a life, which really, and then coming alive and then being fully living. And for me, that's like a whole spectrum of where people exist in this world. And when you wake up in the morning, that for me is like being fully alive, fully living.
Yeah. Everything is possible. Everything.
So that sense, that's what I would like to take with me into 2023, like waking up with a sense of everything is possible and that curiosity of the total relaxation. Thank you so much for coming on. And what else is possible in 2023?
Well, you are so welcome, Katarina, and I get to play with you in South Africa very soon. I'm flying in a couple of days and we're going to a beautiful place called Londolozi, and thank you for inviting me to go, and I'm super excited.
So am I. So we'll see what kind of joy, happiness, receiving and relaxation we can explore there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities. I hope you have more space in your world now. If you would like to listen to earlier episodes, share with other people, or subscribe, please go to Spotify, iTunes, or visit katarinawallentin.com/wolf.